Welcome everybody. Thank you for turning up on a very hospitable evening. As usual, you know that if there is a fire emergency, the exit doors are right there. And I have to ask if, apart from the official video, if anybody is going to record the meeting, video or audio. Councillor McAuliffe.
Sorry to interrupt, Mr. Chairman. I've had a couple of residents today and a few comments on social media asking for clarity on the reason why we require people to declare that they're full move of recording at a meeting. As the belief is that a public meeting, there doesn't need to be any disclosure. So can I ask that you have a look at the reasons why we request that and report back next month?
That's fine by me. Yes, I know people have a right to say very often if they are willing to view it on video, but I will come back to next month's meeting with clarification.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor King.
Yeah, in reply to that, to what Councillor Mackler said, I think it's 2014 when it became law that council and local government meetings and such would be filmed or recorded. But I think you'll find that each town or district or parish council just has a recordings policy. So everyone is, so obviously it has to abide by the law that filming has to be allowed, but there is the caveat for each district association or town council to actually have a policy for recordings, which I think we do have one. So maybe we should take that first. But the fact that you don't have to ask cannot be right, because in some meetings there are people that don't wish to be filmed and there could be children.
Yes.
So basically there has to be a policy to cover all of this. I believe you will find that we do have a policy. So
Yes.
perhaps we can refer to that as well.
I think it's covered, but I will certainly come back to the next meeting with a clear statement.
Thank you.
Thank you. Apologies for absence.
Thank you, Chairman. We've got apologies from Councillor Page, Councillor Banbridge TDC, Councillor Messenger TDC and Laura Longard.
Thank you. We have two sets of minutes. The first is the minutes of the council meeting held on 5th of February, so the last time we met. Does anyone have any comments? Councillor Cornford?
I'll propose that we pass them.
Okay, thank you. Propose, everyone ready to second? Thank you. The minutes of the Finance and General Purposes Committee. Has everyone agreed those minutes? Could you kindly raise your hand to indicate agreement? Everyone? Councillor Artinger?
Sorry, the minutes. May I agree with those, please? Do you agree them? Do you agree
Do you
with
approve the minutes of the last meeting?
No. Full council.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Sure.
Is this finance or all council?
No, this is full council. Thank you.
Secondly, the minutes of the Finance and General Purposes Committee dated 22nd of January. Any comments on those? Anyone propose that we receive them? Councillor King, Councillor Roth, thank you. Seconded. Councillor Cornford, everyone in agreement? Please indicate. Thank you. Anyone wish to declare an interest in the items on the agenda for this evening? No.
Planning.
Planning. Thank you.
Report of the community warden, I understand. Do we have a report from?
Yes, dear Chairman. Yes. Thank you. Okay, so this is in Laura's own words. Good evening, everyone. Having bumped into a resident and discussed various things, she was unaware of the role of the warden. She explained that it would be good for me to let others know too. I have kind of taken for granted of how we, the wardens, have evolved from the original job we did. Originally, we were taken on and we worked rurally and with police officers that were paid for by KCC as well as Kent Police. We have over the years seen the introduction of PCSOs and a widening of issues and problems within our communities. Although I am happy to listen to any problems and issues, anything of a police nature is advised to be called through to 101 and reported. So my main workload is council. That's highway issues, rubbish, fly tips, parking, drains, lighting, etc, etc. When working not for KCC, we pass the issues to Thanet District Council for them to deal with. The warden scheme has always promoted KCC services first and foremost, but we now undertake jobs that were never part of our original remit. With training and new skills still being learned all the time, we deal with a vast range of situations. For example, we are involved with many agencies doing such things as coming out of hospital checks, referrals, vulnerable visits. What services do they need to be referred to so that these individuals can stay in their own homes? Is a home someone might have lived in all their lives adequate for their needs now? Can they get in and out of the bath? Do they need adaptations? Do they need some sort of call from a befriending service? So lots more care in the community type services, as well as obviously visible presence, which is a huge part of our job now. You only see things if you walk and talk to people on your travels. If you'd like to take a long time with the many interesting, quirky things, downright strange and lovely people at situations I deal with on a daily basis, but be rest assured, if I can't do it, I know her man who can. Please don't hesitate to call me, and she's left her mobile telephone number and her email address, which are available on our website, or you can simply leave a message with the lovely staff at Westgate Library and she will contact you ASAP.
Thank you very much. And any reports from county and TVC councillors?
Yes. Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, so I've got a report here from the district councillors. Apologies for not being there this evening. Council messengers at a members' briefing regarding enforcement and coastal, and Councillor Banbridge has had root canal treatment today. What a great success the pancake race was today. Well done to everybody that was involved. Our favourite bit was when the young man carried on running, a budding Forrest Gump perhaps. The Livington Road pedestrian crossing has now got improved beacons and brighter posts in order to improve visibility. We have requested the enforcement teams there on a regular basis to try and improve on the inconsiderate parking. As announced at the end of last year, the A28 from Brooksend to the Clock Tower will be resurfaced, and work commences in April and will cause disruptions, but they're trying to do the main part of the work in the evening wherever possible. Millwood Homes have now submitted their idea for the strategic sites in Westgate to the planning inspector. They would urge residents to take a look at the planning inspector's website for Thanet local plan and Millwood's submission. In addition, the public examination for the local plan is at St Augustine's Ruby Room, the 2nd to the 4th of April, 9th of April, 12th, 16th and 18th of April. If you're unsure, you can make a representation and contact Annette Feeney, and they've actually provided a mobile telephone number. Both Sam and Carol will be making representations to speak against the housing, and there will be a follow-up to the inquiry in May, where they will submit further information when it is available. Any questions, please do not hesitate to contact them.
Thank you. Shall we move to item 6? Anyone indicated to speak?
No, Chairman.
So we come to my report, and I also enjoyed the pancake race this morning. There were a large number of pancakes ended up on the tarmac. It was nice that the weather held out, and my thanks to all who were involved in that, whether it was holding a tape, fending off the traffic or whatever. I think it went very well, and I think it's always appreciated. Two particular things to mention. The first is that in response to discussions that we've had here, I met concerning the library with Councillor Mike Hill, who is the Cabinet Member in KCC for libraries, along with Councillor Page. And we put to him both our feeling that the library plays a key role in the life of the town, both for young people and older people, that it has a lot of potential that we haven't yet fully developed, and that we were concerned about the reduction in the number of hours proposed. His reply was that the aim of the whole package throughout Kent is not to lose any libraries, in other words to keep them all open so that no community will be faced with the closure of its libraries, that countrywide the average level of reduction of library activities is around 20%. So although Westgate is slightly higher than that, we still keep our library, and it is still there for possible future development. We discussed with him how the question of the management of the libraries is concerned. Thanet libraries are treated in one area together with Dover District Council area, and I think there are 14 libraries in this area. I think Westgate comes in ranking about in the middle of the table. The table is based on 5 criteria which concern things like, as well as the number of books and items issued, it covers other issues such as whether most of the library members are only members in that library or whether they are members in several libraries and so on. So they have their way of judging the level of activity, and apparently Westgate comes out, as I say, in the middle of the table. So we try to explore ways in which we could make better use of the library, activities that we might hold there or encourage others to hold there. There are obvious limitations in terms of the building itself, which we had a look around. The lack of disabled facilities and lack of access was something that we discussed, and we were told that it would, to provide a lift and proper access, for instance, of the toilets would probably cost something in, well, around 100,000 was the figure that was mentioned, 70 to 80,000 for a lift from one floor to another, and the rest for other improvements that were necessary. There is upstairs, which I've never been upstairs in the library, there is quite an interesting hall area, hall with a small stage, so there are meetings that could be held up there. And I did mention that if the pavilion is going to be out of action for some time, there is the possibility maybe to use the library for some of the venues. The decision which will be taken this week, I think, by the KCC Cabinet on the reduction of hours and so on, will be reviewed in 2 years' time, so it is possible if we make significant progress in the next 2 years that we might either get more hours or at least be spared further cuts. The second important meeting I had the last few days was again in response to the minutes of last meeting, which was with Sir Roger Gale, who was accompanied by Councillor Rees-Pugh from TDC, who was there in his capacity as chair of the local Conservative Party, concerning QEQM and the local surgery I mentioned, but most of the discussion was firstly about the stroke unit, QEQM, and the move to Ashford of intensive care of stroke victims. I knew I wasn't going to change his mind, and he did come up with several points concerning the relatively poor performance of QEQM in stroke care rehabilitation. It doesn't rate apparently very highly compared with the national criteria. Secondly, the efforts that will be made to improve the stroke unit at Margate, which will be used for minor strokes and for rehabilitation. So his point was really that the stroke unit at Ashford will be for major strokes which require a very intensive treatment. He reckoned that most patients after about 48 hours could perhaps be transferred to rehabilitation. I underlined to him the points that we've discussed here, that the time taken not just to get to Ashford but to get an ambulance to wherever the stroke victim is, and then to get to Ashford can be quite considerable. Although people are debunking the whole idea of a golden hour, I said it is true. Is it not that the sooner treatment is given, the better? So that was the bulk of the discussion on the stroke unit. I did point out to him that I still believe that compared with certain other areas of the country, including West Sussex, where the Secretary of State for Health has his constituency, that we seem relatively poorly supplied with stroke units. On the more general issues affecting QEQM, I asked him if he was aware of the staffing difficulties which I understand they are currently having, and he underlined that, well, the better the hospital, the more expertise you can draw in, the better it is. That for strokes, the unit in Ashford will have a significant training role, and that those people who have been well trained through proper consultants can then be sent to the units like the one in Margate. I also mentioned the rumoured closure of the A&E. He said that was something he was watching closely, but he thought that some of these rumours are, what can I say, blown up, driven by certain people. So that was those were the two main meetings that I had in response to council discussions. As we'll note later on, I have asked to be heard at the discussions on the local plan, which the planning inspector is having next month. We'll come to that item later. Thank you. Yes, Councillor King.
Yeah, thank you for the report, Chairman, and after the two meetings that you attended. I know that Michael's been interested in trying to do something with the libraries over the years. This has not just come up, but it seems to me that where Kent County Council failed to take into consideration is that the area we live in is the second most deprived area in the south east, and when you apply cuts across the board, if you was apply, just for argument's sake, a 10% cut across the board, then 10% in Tunbridge Wells would not equate to 10% here because of the deprivation that we suffer here. And libraries and what they offer are not just bookshops now, they're multifaceted things.
Yes.
For the children, from the early learning centres and the nurseries that they run in now. The building itself, which was some time ago put forward by Nick Dermott, the TDC officer, who tried to get it listed. In his opinion, he said it was one of the finest examples of 1960s architecture. in this part of Kent, and that the Heritage England were very short-sighted in refusing it. Having said that, I mean, it would be good if we could actually try and get some sort of thing, something going to try and have another go at getting the library listed to that status. It has been reported to me, and you can see the damage on the windows at the top, where the cracks are appearing, that there is actually subsidence. And Kent County Council, if anyone's going to take it on, then that's going to be the responsibility of whoever's going to take it on. Kent County Council are not going to spend any money on it. So anything to look towards that, would have to be taken into consideration. But it is a very important and iconic and centrepiece of Westgate. And I still think that our town council should try and develop something in the near future and an ongoing period to try and do something with it that will retain it and keep the benefits that we're used to. And I'm glad that you've brought up the football over there. Yes, it is actually one of the more used libraries in Kent. As for your report with Sir Roger Gow, I never cease to get amazed by this man who is purported to be the representative for Thanet North. And I always thought that an MP should actually listen and subscribe to the people that actually put him in office. I find that Mr. Gow's attitude is one of arrogance. I think that his decision here, where he's completely in transition, won't listen to anybody, will sooner or later cost somebody an unnecessary loss of life. To actually equate that you can go from here to Ashford. And we all know how long it's going to take to get to Ashford, even if you don't go through Canterbury, when you can go to a perfectly good hospital a few minutes away, where you can then have your situation arrested, and then possibly when you're in that arrested position, then transferred to Ashford. But they're proposing straight to Ashford. Well, you're not going to make Ashford, and that's the whole point. Now, I was stopped in the week by an elderly gentleman and his wife, who I know quite well for the years of them being a resident here when he used to run the guest house at the bottom of St Mildred's Road. And he had a stroke 2 years ago, just under 2 years ago, and has nothing to say but good about QEQM. In fact, he said if it wasn't for the hospital and the quick treatment and it was available, he wouldn't be here today. I just, also find, this split. To me, there's a split here in the Conservative thinking. I mean, we've got district councillors that are saying that they don't support going to Ashford. We've got a Conservative MP that insists we've got to go to Ashford. We've got Medway. We've got Medway Unitary Council under Conservative leader Alan Jarrett, who are actually setting £50,000 aside for a judicial review. So where is the thinking? There's no joined up thinking here whatsoever. So basically, when we are in this position, I thought phones were supposed to be turned off before.
It's 3 minutes. Yeah, 3 minutes.
3 minutes. But I wasn't called for 3 minutes. Who's talking about 3 minutes? I'm not public speaker. If you don't want to hear from me anymore, then you can call me up. But you don't have to give me 3 minutes.
Well, it would be helpful if you could keep your comments brief. I mean,
Okay, well, I've said what I'm going to say. I hope it's been taken on board. And I also hope the last time that I made similar comments, miraculously, we had a technical fault with the recording. I hope that technical fault doesn't happen again. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Just if I could reply very quickly on the library point. Within the library service, there are people who are called something like community development librarians, and I do think it would be worth us exploring the possibility of getting advice from them on what support they could give to us as a relatively deprived area. Obviously, there's a lot going on at the library already, but that was one of the avenues that was mentioned to us. Well, councillors' report, has anybody got anything to report on? Well, I think Councillor O'Connor was first up.
Oh, sorry. Just a very quick one, just to say about the allotments. On the last allotment meeting, had thank yous to say that they've got the funding for their the new community shop that they're going to be doing, and work started last Sunday, and then we'll continue to work on it. So as it progresses, we'll start taking some photos and bringing them in and showing everything how they run it.
Thank you. Scott. Matthew Scott.
Yeah, just a few reports. One for just the speed watch. Just want to welcome James and Diane, who basically completed their practical training at their last speed watch. It is actually starting to grow and actually becoming a massive success now, to the point that we are able to actually split the speed watch into 2 groups, and therefore meaning that we're able to do speed watch sessions during the week, which is obviously quite crucial because, as you know, traffic is very different on the roads during different times of day. So I'm glad that we've now managed to get that amount of volunteers on board to do that. Always welcoming more volunteers to obviously further improve the speed watch. With that, following through to the community surgeries. So the last community surgery that we had, it was with Councillor McCallum and myself. Again, a very interesting, very productive one. Basically, a lot of the questions were in relation to Councillor McCallum's proposal with the Westgate Balloon and the train station. So I think in the format of these Saturday surgeries, where it is myself who hosts them, along with a guest counsellor, so to speak, is really actually coming on board and actually finding a lot of traction with that going forwards. The next Saturday surgeries will be on the 16th of March, between 10 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. At the Westgate Library. It will be with Councillor Pauline O'Connor, who does a lot within the actual finance part of the council, and obviously that will give an opportunity for residents to come along, and I'll post up more information soon. To that, I think that's what I've got, so I don't know what to say. Once.
Councillor O'Connor.
So I've only got a few things. First of all, I just wanted to say that the Saturday surgery was actually a very enjoyable experience. I think you actually learn a lot spending time with individual residents, and when you can give them the direct answers to the questions, that actually changes their perception on the council as a whole. So I actually found it really enjoyable, so I would encourage as many people as possible to put their names forward for that. I just want to mention on the back of Speedwatch, myself, Councillor Comfort and our town clerk, we did a daytime session this week. We monitored 218 cars, of only 17 were actually above the 35 miles per hour. So our stat now drops from being 17% people caught speeding over 35 miles per hour down to 12.2%. So it does actually show that Speedwatch is making a difference to the community. Then on a couple of quick things, South Eastern have basically given us a date for finishing the first phase of works at the station, which will be the 31st of March. I also just want to give a quick update on Westgate and Bloom. Despite rumours being put out into the community that Westgate and Bloom is not going to happen, and is a dead project within the council, I'm happy to say that the Bumblebee Conservation Trust have agreed to sponsor the complete planting of the station, and they'll be using local volunteers and volunteers of their own, which I think is absolutely fantastic, and will actually give a really good kickstart to the Westgate Bloom project. And finally, Friday this week is International Women's Day. So I just want to recognise that as a recent slur thrown at me of being like a woman on the council, I just want to recognise the fact that I'm very proud to work with such a diverse, strong-minded, independent group of women on all levels in the council and behind the scenes of the council. And I hope that in the Women's Independence Day is celebrated widely on Friday. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Crawford?
Yes, to echo what
what Laura Bombard said, there's actually a social prescribing day on the 14th of March, 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. at the United Reformed Church. And it's the first of its kind. It was spearheaded by the Westgate Surgery about 2 years ago. It's about community and venues and organising events for people who feel excluded, who are lonely, who are on the edge.
They actually put a lot of effort into replying to the community survey, which was 3 years ago, and just to reiterate their input, we're using that in our evidence in this hearing.
I think it's important, yes, thank you. I think it's important that people are left with the impression that they take the trouble to write into an exercise like this and then it just gets forgotten. So I do think it's important that we, firstly, that we make sure people are kept informed, but also that they have the chance to come back to us and give us their views. Councillor Scott.
Sorry.
Or a cast.
So the only thing I was going to say, I think it's probably a good idea for the meeting, because if people want to attend some of these, you can reiterate what you've most important to Westgate.
Yeah.
It would be useful to people to be able to attend.
Yeah, it was just to summarise that obviously the main points that we're going to be making are the allocations on the agricultural land. So we want to protect the agricultural land as much as we can with some form of development. But also that if Manston Airport does return as a mixed-use site, i.e. that it has housing, that the 1,000 houses that was reallocated to us gets taken back to Manston. And if we can, try and put that point across and see whether there's any legal argument, which there should be, because in the local plan, the only protection of agricultural land is that if there's lower quality land, that should be used first. So therefore, if Manston Airport comes back into use for housing, then it actually has a legal requirement that housing is used firstly on the lower quality land than the agricultural land. So I'm hoping that we can push that.
Chair,
Yes.
carrying on to what Councillor Scott's just said, wouldn't it be beneficial then, I'm looking at here in day 9, I don't think we're included in that, but that is about the Manston Business Park and the airport. Wouldn't it be relevant to be speaking of that? That's here in day 9, Wednesday the 17th of April, week 3. I can't see us being represented at the moment.
No, that's right. I can ask to speak on that and bring on.
I mean, what Councillor Scott's just said, it's more than relevant on that day, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, it's Manston Business Park and the airport.
Well, it's the role of the airport, yes.
The airport, yeah.
Yes. I'll draw that to their attention. Thank you. Councillor Scott.
If you do speak on that day, then that's fine, but it's not really a view on Manston. It was if Manston, it wasn't really a view on Manston itself becoming housing or staying as an airport. It's that if it went back to having housing, then we would stipulate that the 1,000 houses are taken back.
Yeah. Chairman, I mean, without labouring the point, and I understand, I appreciate what Councillor Scott's saying, but my understanding of it is that they will resist very hard to take back that 1,000 houses, especially as a developer who's been here and told us without the extra 1,000 houses, there's no what do they call it, gains.
Medical centre. No, they didn't say that.
Yeah.
No, they
Okay, gains.
Sorry, no, they didn't actually say that. Just Millwood Homes is happy to build 1,000 houses as they are to build 2,000 houses. It's just that if they build 2,000 houses, they can provide a medical centre and a larger school, whereas if they build 1,000 houses, it's just a two-form entry primary school.
With no medical centre.
There's no medical centre.
Okay, thank you. Are there any more points on? Councillor Scott. Final external auditor report. Mr. Fuller.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah. So as a result of the challenge that we received, this is now the external auditor's final report and our certificate. So that means that 2017-18 is now signed off by the auditors. The invoice is attached as well. We actually set that now. This was actually at the last meeting's agenda around that time. So it's just the report actually for members to receive tonight. Thank you.
Councillor King.
Yeah, do we get a chance to know who challenged it? Or is that,
And so that was reported previously on different meetings, but yeah, if you want to email you any information, I'm happy to do that.
or can't we tell the council tonight?
No, well, the report's actually, the certificate is to actually agree, so I can't disclose anyone's names here to this evening now.
Thank you. Yes.
I'm surprised we've got another invoice, because didn't we get an invoice for £800 for this?
This is the invoice for the additional work undertaken for the challenge. So this isn't the original.
Is this the same challenge from the one person carried on?
This is the only challenge we received for this year's. We received one previously, last year when I was started here. But this is for 2017-18.
So
We only had one
this was
challenge.
the second challenge.
No, we've only had one challenge in 2017-18, but we've had two challenges since I've been employed in the town council. It was still ongoing when I arrived.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Do we need to vote on it? To be received.
And that's just to receive.
Newquay Town Council about survey on parking enforcement. As you know, parking enforcement is quite important for all of us. I don't know if you've had a chance to look at the information provided. Would you like to speak to it?
Thank you. Okay, yeah, so we received an email from NELC, because Newquay Town Council actually wanted to undertake a survey with different towns and parish councils. Basically, they're seeking greater powers to enforce on-street parking restrictions. So I just literally sent members the just detailed questions so that we don't spend too much time, hopefully, this evening debating them. But basically, if you've got opinions on the questions before you, we can get a majority opinion, because I need to actually respond as the organisation, so we're not individually responding on the surveys, it's one response. Thank you.
Right, you've only seen the list of questions. Councillor.
Yeah, so one of the questions is the town council should be able to enforce on-street parking restrictions. Obviously, with regards to that kind of thing, then it would mean that we were employing somebody ourselves and enforcing restrictions. I think so. That's kind of going down, quite a monetary heavy situation on that one. We've talked about bringing in that company before, I think, what's it called?
Kingdom.
Kingdom. We talked about Kingdom before. I think there's a role for us to play with regards to where we think that TDC should enforce more restriction, and we should, lobby them to do that. We know quite clearly the corners of the roads and, people park all over the place in Westgate at the moment, and on double yellows. So I think that, we do need to maybe write to TDC and have a bit more emphasis on discussions around this, because it does seem to be a little bit unsafe sometimes when you drive round Westgate, round the corner, and there's somebody parked on double yellows, and you have to suddenly go round them. But what I can see here is that, if we're given more powers to control parking, what we're actually saying is that actually then we need to put up our precept to employ somebody to then be a parking warden, and it's kind of along those lines.
Councillor Paul.
Yeah, I think some of the problems that we've got with the parking restrictions is that the fact that the line markings are not there, so people can just park over there. Most line markings now are completely faded. There's hardly any lines on junctions or anything else like that. It's one of the areas they seem to have kind of forgotten. So, you know, without a proper definitive saying that you can't park here because the lines would be marked, you know, I think you're going round again in circles, and I think a lot of it does that. If you see the line, you don't park it, or a lot of people don't park. You will get the one or two that will always park.
Yeah.
If they don't see the lines, on the corner of our roads, there's no lines, so people park.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor.
Just to follow on that, I do think that it is about communicating better with TDC. I noticed that on the corner of Adrian Square last night, they had late night enforcement officers, which is the first time I've ever seen them, and they were actually putting tickets on the cars that were sitting on the corners. So I think if we were to communicate more with TDC and ask for more flexible enforcement hours, then a lot more people would be actually caught out, penalised, and then not do it again. But actually, from looking at last night's action, there were 6 cars this morning that were ticketed, and there are 6 cars that are non-rule breakers. So I do think that the suggestion of communicating better with TDC and asking for flexibility is potentially the way to go.
Thank you, Councillor Cornford.
Equally, traders say that they have a problem with other traders parking in the high street all day long, which inhibits trade, basically,
Yeah.
and causes problems. Is it possible for the town council to write? I mean, this is going off.
Again.
Again, have we already written?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's perfectly justifiable to write on a regular basis. I think it's really quite wrong that people park there all day to contravention of the rules, as well as being bad business for Westgate. There is usually parking space available on other roads which aren't subject to parking restrictions and are only a short walk away, and I don't see why people shouldn't have 50 or 100 yards to stretch their legs before they get into the shop in the morning. My own reaction to this is I would like to see town councils given responsibility to set parking restrictions as well as enforce them. Maybe that's going beyond the scope of this debate. Councillor Nightingale.
Yes. I was just thinking is, to me, the most dangerous parking, if you want to call it that, is when they're delivering particular items to the co-op. In that the length of the lorry stretches over the end of the sort of pavement, which is designed for people who have disabilities.
Yes.
And more than once,
Yeah.
the drivers of the lorries asked me if I'd mind, well, I was going to anyway, seeing someone over the road with disabilities, because he realised that his truck was blocking the whole lot. So it's not just parking. I think it's delivery and loading and unloading that's equally a problem.
Sometimes simply block one of the side streets.
Yes, exactly.
Just one. Councillor Roth.
That, what Councillor Ryan has just brought up, I wouldn't play too heavy on that, because if we do, these shops will close. We keep saying, yeah, we keep saying your lorries are doing this and your lorries are doing that. It's happened in Deal recently. Got to be a little bit careful with that one.
Okay. Take it. Okay, Councillor King and then Councillor McCarthy.
Yeah, well, my own opinion is that this is an opportunity, if we can take it, to actually get some enforcement ourselves on the parking. Not just parking, I think it would be beneficial if we could get some devolved powers, not just for parking, but also for dog fouling and littering as well. Yes, we may have to employ someone, if that was to be the case, but there's always going to be a cost to something. But I think that if we were to go down that route, the actual wages would be self-funded from the revenue that would be collected. and at the same time we will be addressing some really, some really serious concerns. There's been quite a lot today on social media about one of our roads being targeted very often with this dog family. So, I think that, sometimes, if you want to make an omelette, you've got to crack a few eggs, so if it means investing a bit, well, I think it can be self-funding. I think we can actually get the money back through the revenue that we collected and provide the service, which is, I think, wanted by a lot of
I would assume that we did get the revenue back. Councillor Mikhailov?
Yeah, I just wanted to say something very quickly on the co-op, because it's a problem that I've come across too. However, coming from a background of big box retailers, if we engage with the co-op's HQ, most big box retailers are not adverse to changing routes for delivery times if we engage with them, and they can do that locally. So I think that the action point from that should be that we contact the co-op and see if they can do early morning deliveries rather than doing lunchtime and afternoon deliveries, which is also better for the high street as well. And from being in touch with the co-op recently on DFIPs, they are actually very open to having conversations with the community because they are a community store. So I would like to action that we contact the co-op about deliveries as a separate action point.
Okay. Yes. Councillor Scott?
So it was just literally a question to know, to understand that if we took on this job, we would definitely get the revenue from the parking tickets. Is that something that we definitely know for sure, that if we were issuing the tickets, then the Westgate Town Council would get the revenue from those tickets?
I was going to say, at the moment, the District Council's revenue has to go back. It should be ring-fenced for expenditure. But I think this is why this survey is being done at the moment, because Newquay Town Council are exploring the ideas of getting the powers. So this survey is literally just for a response to contribute to the consultation, really. So it's just getting your opinion, but certainly it's something, if it did get the devolved powers, then we can certainly look into the legalities of that, if that's what we would like.
What's the deadline?
And the deadline's 14th of March.
Councillor O'Connor?
Yeah, similar points as far as that one. I was saying that if we do go, which I can understand that we should look at it and to see it's not a certain scale that we're going to go for it. But it would worry me that if we took it on, would the council then still do the road markings and things like that that would enable us to reinforce things? Because, or would they say that's down to you, you've taken that on, therefore we're not going to do anything. So that's the cautiousness that I feel. In principle, I think we should have a bit more say, but
Good. Okay. Can we leave it there? How are we going to proceed?
So, if members don't want to actually consider these here and now, what we could do is that I ask you to, supply the answers to me individually, and then I can collate the responses and get a majority opinion. If everyone's in agreement to that.
I don't know.
No, I'm doing it now.
Do it now.
It's one less job, but I think...
Sorry,
I think that we should just do it now, because
Yeah.
it's one less job for the town clerk to have to collate in the office.
Okay, so the first question is, would your town council support greater powers to enforce on-street parking restrictions in your town? Yes, no, or not sure? Have we got any suggestions or proposals for yes? Say yes.
Yes, what's
Thank you. And then simply underneath there are statements, and they just want you to express which ones you support. So greater powers to control parking for local town councils are needed. Are you all in agreement that greater powers are needed?
Yes.
Thank you. A lack of local enforcement is a problem that needs addressing in our area. Everyone's in agreement, I think, with that. Thank you. Town councils are more accountable and therefore would be more effective at enforcing parking restrictions in this area.
Yes.
Yeah.
Town council should be able to enforce on-street parking restrictions.
Yes.
Is there a mixed opinion on that one? No? Everyone in agreement?
Well, maybe yes in principle, but how?
Yes, in principle, yeah.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
Questions aren't totally
No,
right.
no, they're not.
They're a bit leading, aren't they?
Yeah. Town council should have a greater say on what on-street parking restrictions are implemented.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you. And town councils should be able to implement parking restrictions on land owned managed. Now, we don't actually own any land at the moment, so I don't think that was relevant to us. And a lack of enforcement powers is a barrier to devolution. Would you agree with that
Agree.
statement?
Agree.
Agree. No, not all agreed.
Not necessarily.
It's like voting.
Not sure.
Not sure.
Not sure.
Well, I mean, the lack of enforcement powers is it's an evidence of the non-devolution, the absence of devolution. I don't know how far it's a barrier.
Yeah.
I would say yes.
So I'll put that down as, well, I won't say we support that statement then, because the majority of you don't support that one. And then cuts to funding from central government have had a negative impact on enforcement levels.
Yeah.
You would agree with that? Yeah. And doesn't current lack of enforcement powers put your council off devolution of car parks or land? And again, we don't have any car parks, we don't have any land, so thank you very much.
So, move on to item 15, which is the VHF funding opportunity.
So this is really quick because this has been circulated 2 months ago, but we forgot to put it on the agenda. British Heart Foundation are currently providing funding for defibs, outdoor defibrillators, and they pay the bulk of the cost to do the installation. We pay £600 towards the actual machine. We have spoken to the Swan Town Park, has spoken to the Swan Public House. They're quite happy to have an outdoor defibrillator installed on the outside of the building. So my question today is the proposal to spend £600 on another defibrillator, but this time for outdoors. And this would be the only defibrillator we would have on the seafront.
Yes. Councillor Cox.
I propose we support it.
Where will it come from?
Well, we're slightly underspent now, and I think that we've got it in the budget at this moment. We can take it out this year. Looking at what we're slightly underspent this year, budget.
Okay, yes, Councillor Crawford.
I second it.
Sorry, I was wanting to make a point before that. I mean,
Oh, sorry.
I agree with that, but I think there's a need for one on St Mildred's Bay as well, personally. So I would suggest if we have a surplus, then I think we should have two. And also, both have got lifeguards in them, in the bays during the summer time. So that would, I would thought, be helpful for them as well. Where we would place it is another matter, but I think we should consider both.
So if I can just come back on that, the funding, you can apply for multiple machines. The machine should cost £1,800 each. British Heart Foundation are funding £1,200 per machine. And I do believe that we need one in each bay, and I believe that Millie's would be interested in having an outdoor one attached to their building as well. So, and these are lockbox machines, so when you phone 999, they give you the code to get the machine so they don't get stolen.
Okay. Councillor Crawford.
I'd just like to say that obviously in the research we've got discretionary powers of 2,500 that can be used if we cannot fund it within our surplus. So we have actually got the money in reserves,
Yes.
which is for discretionary powers, and I think this is something that will benefit the whole of Westgate, certainly on our beaches we should have something like that.
Good as well. Councillor King.
Yeah, we've got a site plan for where these are going. I mean, if we're going to have one in one bay, one in another bay, we've got one. So So we've one at the Swan and one somewhere in the other bay. Is there any other sites around Westgate that have been marked out, possibly on the other side of Canterbury Road? Where are the sites that have been marked out? I mean, are we just, how many are we actually envisioning putting out?
Yes, I mean, there are.
It's okay, yeah, I was just going to say there is several machines on the other side. So the fire station, King Edwards and Ursuline are all got defibrillators. Ursuline are just about to be theirs in. King Edwards is already in, and the fire station already has one there, so there'll be 3. And I've already approached Miles and Bar to install one on the outside of their new HQ, but their new HQ will be ready for a year.
Where's the new HQ?
What was the Catholic Church?
Yeah, I was thinking more in the region of where the shops are, on the top of Campbell Road, where people come down, they use the shops. I think we need one around there.
We've got some in the co-op, has
The
got the...
co-op is
the
about
dentists have got-
put one in here. So we have several in this end of the town. So we've got the Big Mill House, we've got the My Surgery, with My Dentist, we've got the surgery, we've got Edwards, and the co-op are about to put one in the next 2 to 3 months. So we've got quite a few at this side. And it might be a suggestion to move the one from Edwards to the other side, because we do have a lot in very close proximity in this side of the town.
Yeah.
So we could move the Edwards one into that area, which would then, wouldn't cost us any money.
Yeah. Well, I don't mind which way we do it, but I feel that we've got to balance it up with access to
Yeah,
defibrillator on the other side as well.
yeah. I mean, it seems like a discussion on where we put them will take some time. All we need to decide this evening is really whether we're buying 1 or 2 from the discussion. Councillor Scott.
Yeah, I think when we were discussing it before, we did actually think, one for each bay. Perfect scenario was one for each bay and then one over on the south side. So, like around the community centre, or as Kathleen said, around the shopping area. Maybe the shopping area has more footfall than the community centre. So I think that's quite a good suggestion. So if we're buying 2 and we have got a way of moving one of them, then that's fine. But if we haven't got a way of moving one of them, then perhaps we should think of purchasing 3. But we do need to sort of think about, we don't want to, start rushing into that, too much of an expense when the first discussion is just one at this moment in time.
Okay. I'll take Councillor O'Connor and then Councillor Wright.
I do think the community centre or round by the children's play area should have one that's in, because obviously you hear about young children playing football and having heart attacks, don't you? So if you're going to have something, the allotment area, that's not so far to run up to the community centre to get one. Just an idea.
2 quick points. If we take one away from Edwards, I think that one's the other one's going to be outside all the time. The others are all, our businesses are open, the doctor's surgeries are okay, it's open, the co-op is open. If they're closed, you haven't got one. And I think the lifeguards, do they not carry a defib in their hut? I think they do.
I've never seen it, I do, but they're only there for a few months anyway.
Just the I think you should take one away from Edwards.
No, I mean, Edwards is open 6 in the morning to 11 at night. It's the most accessible place that we've got in the centre of the town. The point I want to stress though, Chairman, is you can't seem to be concentrating these things in one area at the exclusion of the other side of Westgate.
I agree.
People over there are entitled to have the access to these, whether you live up the top of Linksville or Lymington or whatever. And so, they've got to be proportionately distributed, whatever the cost is.
Yes. Do you, okay, Councillor Matthews.
I mean, we are looking to go with the 2, maybe just have the one at the Swan covering both bays, and then another outside one on the further side, south side. Therefore, we can still retain one in Edwards, and that one could be an ad hoc, so to speak. So we are able to assess year by year where that may need to be, because that is something we can have the flexibility to, and then the outside ones to be installed at either end. And then the further
Is
section.
it going one way, because I couldn't run to the other way, I could get up.
Yes. Councillor Nicholas, what do you think is a sensible thing to do?
So you put in an application, and they then come back to you and tell you what you've been successful with, and then you agree the locations and the fees. So I can put an application in for 3, and we may get 2 or 1. It depends on what they're willing to fund. So if everybody is happy for me to put an application for 3, I will do, and then I'll report back once we get the information on what we've been successful with.
So Chair, application to the
British Heart Foundation, yeah.
Because I'm asking that because I know that the co-op, I don't know how far it extends, but the co-op, you can apply to the co-op for various funds.
Oh, I see, yeah.
So I'm wondering whether we could maybe get the co-op interested in sponsoring some, getting some for us.
So I did mention at the beginning that the Co-op has already agreed to put a defibrillator in that store, because they don't fund them now, they're actually rolling them out to the stores. So in the next 2 to 3 months, they're intending to put one in that store, which is why I was mentioning Edwards, because obviously the Co-op also opens from 7 in the morning till 11 at night. So that's why I was just flagging up the potential of moving one. But if I put in an application for 3 machines, then we'll know by the next council meeting what we've been approved for. And then I can come back and then we can have the discussions about where we should put what we've been successful with.
Great. So, do you want, can you propose that?
Okay, I propose that's what I do.
Did you get that?
Yes.
Excuse me, through the chair quickly,
Yes.
why are they going to be in the shops? They're virtually tamper-proofs, they've got to be outside the shops.
There's separate different types of machines, and the ones that the British Heart Foundation are funding are the ones that are 999 operated.
So
So
that's the
when
ones
you
you can have outside the shops.
outside, yeah. And that is what the funding is for. So it's specifically for outdoor use.
Good.
Yep.
That's proposed.
Councillor Nicholas has proposed that. Councillor O'Connor seconding. Everyone in favour?
Thank you. And just to clarify, Chairman, that's for 3 machines.
Yeah.
Thank you. So what we get.
Right, letter of consent to use Thaladicus Manston Road Depot Transfer Station. You may ask us what it was about, and the clerk will now tell us.
Thank you, Chairman. So that's just to receive for tonight for all members the letter of consent to use Thanet District Council's Manston Road Depot Transfer Station. I've actually signed and returned this so that we now have formal permission, and that has been granted with a licence to use the depot for our cleansing operatives. Thank you.
So that's just a note.
Yeah, that's just it.
Thank you. Now we now have a few items as addenda. An addendum. I suggest we move to that and then go into closed session. So moving to item 19, which is the proposed publication scheme. We should have a publication scheme as so far we can drop on. So the decision is really to provide that. Do you want to explain briefly what it is?
Yes, so we should actually have a publication scheme in place. We do have the majority of the information already available on the website, but it's just our clarification to residents of what information we are saying is available, how it's obtained, and actually we're committing to keeping the information we have updated as far as possible. So it's quite important for us to have this scheme in place. Thank you.
Any comments on that, or somebody, Councillor Roth?
Is this a website documentation?
Majority of it's on the website, and some of it is actually in the office. But so most of it, that's what I want to work towards. Everything that we have on the publication scheme is available on the website.
Okay, Councillor McAuliffe.
I'd second the proposal.
Okay, Councillor McAuliffe proposes we do it, seconder. Councillor Scott. One of them.
All in favour?
All in favour?
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. And next is, I think, should be brief, concerning the notice taught in Newington Road.
Yes. Thank you, Chairman. Yes, so I'm pleased to report that we've got our licence at last from Thanet District Council for the notice board at Newington Road. And I am, thank you. And I am going to meet with the carpenter on Friday to go out on site and actually agree the location, well, identify the location for him. So hopefully that should be up within the next 2 to 3 weeks. And I'd like to thank our resident who's actually sat in the audience for volunteering to assist me with updating with the notices when it's in
All my
situ.
friends,
Thank you very much.
thank you, Jim.
Thank you for that. And lastly, item 22, the appointment of the internal auditor. I don't know if anyone wants to comment on this, or can we just have it close second?
I'll propose it.
Yeah. So, Councillor O'Connor, those in favour?
Thank you.
Thank you. I now propose that we pass a resolution to exclude the press and public from the remainder of the meeting pursuant to section 1(2) of the Public Bodies Admission of Meetings Act 1960. That's all confidential nature of business. Councillor Corn for proposal as well.
Yeah.
All those in favour? Thank you.
Thank you.